Hey, everybody. Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
Dean, we're in the whole business to business, or as the kids like to call it, B2B world,
Yes.
right?
Oh, then I'm a kid. It's B2B, baby. Well, that's where we're in, B2B.
You know, I've railed on this before, but like acronyms across different industries fascinate me. I know B2B is not like, insular to our industry in particular, but I always find it funny just the random ways that people use a random acronym to name something. Yeah. So all that's to say, I don't really have much of a way to introduce our topic today other than to say we're going to talk about B2B trends.
B2B trends, I think it's a good thing, right? I mean, every now and then you got to kind of take a step back and say, hey, what the heck is going on in this B2B world? Because B2C gets all the love.
That's true.
That's all I got to say.
It does. And as we've established millions of times on this podcast, and I'm tired of talking about it, but we have to kind of keep talking about it, the last year changed a lot of stuff.
When are we going to stop talking about the pandemic? What do you think?
Maybe 2022. I don't know.
I think it's going to be a little longer.
I think it'll still come
up
every once in a while. Yes. Yeah. I don't. Maybe we might be able to go stretches of like 2 or 3 episodes without talking about it.
Okay.
But
I look forward to that.
I do too. Yeah. I very much do. But again, a lot changed over the last year, and it obviously changed the dynamic of B2B operations, of our world, of any kind of industry in general. So we're going to dive some of those trends. You found a couple cool articles that you sent over to me that we've read through.
A lot to unpack. I don't think we're going to get to it all here today.
No, we're not. And I will put the links to these articles in our show notes, especially one of them from Finances Online that goes pretty deep in, and we'll kind of skim the surface a little bit. So we're gonna talk a little bit about trends that are happening out there with spending behaviors, events, user experience, customer expectations, and what all that means to a B2B business. So,
absolutely.
All that plus the usual value to the VAR. What's tech connecting with us? It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, as I mentioned, we are talking B2B trends today. So this first article that you found and sent over to me yesterday from Finances Online, a website I honestly admit I had never heard of before.
Yeah, me neither, right? I don't know how I stumbled across this, but hey,
But it's a good article. It's called 13 B2B Trends for 2021-2022 Future Forecasts You Should Know. And it's pretty deep. These 13 trends get pretty deep. They have like summaries at the end of each section. I found myself kind of skimming through the main content, looking at the summaries and digging out some nuggets that I wanted to talk about. But before we get into some of the trends that stood out to us and riff on them, there were a couple stats. They gave a lot of interesting stats in here from a lot of surveys, and a couple of them that really stood out to me. One of them was 52% of B2B companies felt technology infrastructure was exposed as a weakness during the pandemic.
Yep.
Makes sense?
Oh, yeah. I think so. Yeah, I mean, when you think about the whole remote work now and what that has exposed and all these, what do they call them, phishing attacks that are happening now through email and stuff like that. Yeah, 52% of B2B companies felt technology infrastructure was exposed. Yep.
And honestly, this is one of those stats, if you told me this 6 years ago, would have checked out. But obviously became so much more important over the last year. To your point, remote work or all these new ways that companies had to figure out how to do business that maybe they've never done before, if they were reliant on face-to-face, if they were reliant on people being able to be together to get work accomplished, having a bunch of people, working together to build products or distribute products. Yeah, a lot of things that technology can solve quite easily when you had to suddenly make a huge pivot that wasn't there and wasn't available for them. So that makes sense. And then the other stat that I found that I liked here, or thought was interesting, was 43% want to identify opportunities for innovation. Again, feels like one of those ones that should be the norm. Honestly, it should be closer to 100%. Who doesn't want to look for opportunities for innovation? Right. But this is basically saying like, hey, people recognize like, look, there's a lot of opportunity for us to change and grow and do something new and different. And, we're actively looking to figure out where those opportunities might lie. And that's relevant, I think, to our audience and to our salespeople that are out there in the world trying to, sell technology and recommend solutions, because your customers want to innovate, and they may need someone like you to approach them and tell them how they should be innovating, because they may not know. They may know, hey, we know it's a brave new world. We know innovation is important, but we're not really sure where to start. If you can come in there and say, hey, I've got some ideas for you, that can be very important to them.
I think so. And to me, that was a little bit of a surprising. I thought that was kind of a high number. 43% want to identify opportunities for innovation. I mean, that's like, actively seeking ways to innovate.
Right.
And I think that that's going to manifest itself across the board. It doesn't matter what vertical you're in or whatnot. Clearly, people in the business-to-business environment are wanting to identify innovation. So yes, and we've talked about it. I mean, I think that creates a fertile ground for people that are interested in trying to expand their business or whatnot. Innovation is the way to do that and to go after that. And you're going to see it in a lot of different ways that happens. Not just in maybe workflows and stuff like that, but I think it's going to manifest itself in what hardware looks like coming down the pipe, what software looks like, how niche-y software can get, and what the applications that are going to be built. A lot of innovation is going to come through there as well. So really interesting. I think it's just it further emphasizes the fact that yes, people are actively looking for innovation. I guess maybe a little bit of it as everybody feels kind of different coming out of this pandemic, right? You hear that a lot,
right?
That, we're not going to go back to the way we were. Right. Or, I was talking to some people at one of a customer of ours. I won't name the customer, but they did like an internal poll. They have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of employees. And they were pulling them. Just did like one of these flash polls, but their HR department's trying to gauge, how many people are coming back. And the guy's statement was like, out of 200 people that they polled, 5 people want to go back to the office. And it's like, whoa. I don't think a lot of HRs are kind of. That's a big. What is percentage is that? Like less than whatever. It's a small percentage of people. 2.5% of people want to come back to work. So anyway, I mean, we've been talking about that a little bit, but it's going to be these opportunities for innovation, not just in the workforce that can stay at home, but I think that's obviously going to parlay into what we would call labor force as well, which a lot of our resellers dive into. When you're talking warehousing and logistics and stuff like that, there's going to have to be some innovation there as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. And to that end, I feel like a lot of these trends that are pulled out in this article are very much related to innovation. There's a lot of trends that are related to digitalization, a lot of trends that are related to improving your digital infrastructure, that technology. That's why these two stats really stood out to me, because I feel like they very much inform where the rest of this article is going. Let's dive in and start talking about some of the trends that stood out to us. I'll kick one off here, and then we'll kind of maybe go back and forth and see if there's similar ones that stood out to us. So one of the first ones that I noticed was they were talking about spending behaviors.
Okay.
And it mentions that more than half of businesses are expecting 4%, anywhere from 4 to 25% budget reduction, which, again, not terribly surprising based on, what's happened over the last year. If you've had, issues with workforce, if you've lost revenue, you've lost business, there's unless your industry was doing really well and thriving during this time, there's probably a reason that you're going to have to restrict your budget a bit, because you got to cut back a little bit in order to build back up to where you were before. But it did also note that this was sector specific and mentioned that the technology sector, which we play in, obviously, is one where it's not necessarily been impacted quite as dramatically, because again, technology became very, very important over the last year for a lot of businesses. In order to stay in business, in order to shift what they were doing and move forward and survive. So our particular industry, I think, was a very fortunate one where we didn't see quite there was an impact, obviously, but not as dramatic as maybe some other industries might have felt. And more importantly, that it may not impact budgets for our customers in quite the same way, at least from the technology side of things, because maybe they're making cuts elsewhere, but they're ideally, again, is going back to that original statistic, still thinking, hey, we know technology is a weakness. We know innovation is something where there's opportunity for us. We're willing to still put our budget, maybe even a higher than usual budget, into technology now, and that could be good for us.
Well, it's interesting. Whenever I hear about budget cuts, I'm always interested to dig a little bit deeper on what
does that really mean?
What is the 4 to 25% of a budget reduction is a big number. Now, look, if you're in a business that has been dramatically impacted, like a restaurant or a retail establishment coming off the pandemic, of course, some of those reductions have to be made. But you have other companies out there, and to me, some of this gets into the the philosophy of a particular company and how they react to change. We have some companies that we work with that, if you ask me, are overreacting to the conditions that the pandemic has brought on.
Right.
And some of that overreaction, since we're in the marketing department, we see that in the marketing team. And of course, you'll hear many stories of people that say, when's the best time to actually market is when you're down, when the chips are down and you need to get your word out there.
It's not the time to pull that money back.
Bingo. Those that survive and actually come out of whatever dip, more of a hockey stick, are those that keep marketing during tough times.
Right.
So I always have that in the back of my mind, obviously, as a marketer, that, that now's not the time to be doing that. And if you're in a company that's doing that, I don't know, you be the voice that says, hey, we want to make sure that we're well positioned from a marketing standpoint for when the rebound happens, which is going on now. We need to be out there engaging folks. I don't know if the budgetary cuts are, again, I guess it differs if you're a manufacturer or if you're in healthcare or whatever, how that manifests itself. But I guess the aggregate thing here is that there is spending holdback on budgets, is what they're saying, and which is interesting in the B2B world. I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. We've had a lot of conversations about how, going after government funding, or, how there is going to be an increase in some technology spend. So this one will be an interesting one to see how it pans out.
I agree.
Yeah.
And to your point about the marketing thing is, I feel like a lot of companies that probably say to themselves, hey, we're going to dial back on marketing, may also be saying, but we're going to ramp up our sales force. We're going to add new people for sales. We're going to spend more time on sales.
Right.
But then I look at that and say, okay, what are they going to sell? If you're not marketing yourself, if you're not promoting yourself, what is adding more salespeople going to do other than just having more people dialing out to folks that don't know anything about you to begin with? Like you've got to give them something. It's that whole, we talk about this a lot, the adage of, sales and marketing needing to work together. And that is actually, I think, one of the trends they even kind of spotlight in here at some point is the idea of there needs to be cohesion and coherence between your marketing and your sales teams, and it's something we're always preaching. And, sometimes we're not good at it on the marketing side. And sometimes the salespeople aren't great at that. But again, it's that idea like, hey, more salespeople is great, but if you're not doing any kind of marketing, what are they selling? How are people supposed to find them? And is it just, are you just expecting them to go out and just dig up a lot of sales on their own? Because marketing can do a lot of that work for you.
Right. And I think that what it'll do is exacerbate some of the things that we already saw as trends in kind of going a little bit further into where you were going with that sales and marketing being married, if you will. The data, the sophistication that marketing is having in today's world is only amplifying and only becoming more and more important in a digital world. When everybody's at home and there's just a lot more being placed on digital. I'm going to throw one statistic out here that it's not a stat, but a poll out. B2B sales leaders deem digital channels to be more important than traditional face-to-face interactions. To me, that was like, whoa. That seems like, because now you have sales leaders, which, traditionally are salespeople are like, well, no, I got to go out and press the flesh and I got to shake hands and kiss babies and they'll never buy from us unless I'm face-to-face with them type of thing. So to have a poll out here that says, again, B2B sales leaders deem digital channels to be more important than traditional face-to-face, oh my. That to me, that's a little bit of a seismic shift here, but it highlights the fact that sales and marketing definitely have to work together because marketing is becoming much more data driven, right? We know this. We live in that world. Everything that we do has to have some ROI behind it relative to click-throughs or impressions or even drilling down. The attribution has to be there in what we're doing. So sales has to be acknowledged that, and the two have to work together. So if we're looking to grow our sales, how are we going to do that? Well, sales has to know what marketing's doing, vice versa, what's happening out in the marketplace. So yeah, I can see that one as exacerbating a little bit more.
Well, that kind of also then ties into, I've got like three trends here at the end that to me all sort of tie together, and it does all connect to this idea of digital channels. So one of the trends they talk about is user experience, like making your user experience front and center in your business and the way people are able to interact with you, whether it is online, whether it is through an app, whatever it is, making sure that experience is, relevant and comparable to the kind of experience that we get in other places that we use technology.
Yep.
And this is, again, one of these topics I feel like we've talked about ad nauseum, but when I come across a business whose website looks like it was made 20 years ago and is completely out of touch with modern technology and innovation and app design.
This is a pet peeve of yours,
Oh,
isn't it?
it very much is. But it just, it to me, it says something about that company. And it may be completely erroneous. They may be a very cutting edge company, but if your user experience, the way I can first potentially, because there's a lot of people whose first interaction with any given company is going to be, I'm going to look them up online and look at their website before I have any contact with them. And if they look at that and see an outdated or just badly designed site and badly designed interface, difficult to click through, clicking links that go nowhere, no way to look up products or whatever, that's the kind of stuff that will turn somebody off in a hurry, and you are potentially losing customers before you even know they exist. So that's a big one for me.
Absolutely.
And that ties into a couple other ones here, which was one, and this is like kind of tangentially related, and yet I think still very much related. 73% of customers want to resolve issues on their own. As someone who is a do-it-yourself kind of person whenever possible, I completely understand this. I am that guy who will get on YouTube and look up how to fix something before I can call somebody. If I'm not a handyman by any stretch. I was telling you before we got on, we're having a deck, added on to our house, a deck extension or whatever added on. That is not something I'm ever going to try to do on my own. No, I know I'm not capable of that.
Yeah.
But if my toilet breaks or something, I will be gladly, look up some information about how I can potentially fix that myself before I call in a plumber or something. Yeah. But I think that speaks to and again, obviously this percentage tells you that in general, people prefer to solve problems themselves whenever they can, rather than trying to reach out to tech support, rather than exchanging phone calls or emails or chats to try to, get something resolved. And so if you have a means and a ways to help people do that, that's a huge bonus. If it could be as simple as an FAQ section of your site, it could be a basic technical, or like when they go to technical support, there's a list of common problems and troubleshooting issues that they can look up before they have to reach out to someone. It could be, again, links to videos or how-tos or technical manuals or something that they can access long before they have any reason whatsoever to have to get in touch with a person and wait to get in touch with somebody. That can be huge for your business. And then the last point that kind of ties into all this too was acknowledging millennials and Gen Z and their place in the workforce. In the sense that we
do we have to talk about millennials again?
I know we had a whole episode all about the various generations in the workforce, and we talked about the fact that millennials now they're entering their 30s. They are a strong part of the workforce. They, in fact, I think. Are they the majority of the workforce at this point? I think?
Yeah, right.
If they're not, they're close to overtaking the boomers and being the majority of the workforce. And and when a lot of them are starting their own companies now, so a lot of them are the second B in B2B.
Right.
So if you're not understanding that they are digital natives and they understand what digital technology is worth, what it's good for, how it can be the way that they want to communicate and connect and understand you and your business, that is a massive potential failing on your part. And then even more so to Gen Z, this younger generation that is, again, starting to get into this, starting to become people working in businesses that may be responsible for buying decisions, and they flat out have no interest in talking to people on the phone,
Right.
So again, it's all tied together, this idea of a user experience, of giving customers the ability to do stuff on their own, and acknowledging that we have two generations that are basically about to take control of the workforce over the next 10 to 20 years or so, who believe in doing as much as they can on their own, having access to everything at their fingertips, not having to speak to somebody, not having to meet you face to face to get something done. So if you aren't accommodating them and you aren't heading in that direction yourself, you're doing yourself a disservice. Your business literally could be obsolete in no time at all.
I got a pro tip for you on that regard. It's going to wrap it all together.
All right, go for it.
You have to produce videos. So how do millennials get their information? A lot of them get their information via video. How do people like to, whenever somebody says, well, I want to do it myself, I'm always intrigued by that as well, because to me, I think what people mean by that is I'm going to go to some resource, watch how somebody does it, and then I'm going to do it myself. I mean, I find myself doing that. If I have to change the oxygen sensor in my car because I'm a do-it-yourselfer kind of guy, I'm going to go on YouTube and watch some mechanic do it. Do that way. So I think you're absolutely, I think they're dead on here in the sense that you really, as a company, the user experience is very important. B2B and how people interact with that is very, very important. You have to think of tools like video. How can you speak to these audiences? What works with millennials? How do you do that? How do you make sure that if you're catering to that 73% of your customers that want to figure their own stuff out by themselves, your job is to enable them, right? And how are you going to enable those folks? You got to look at like video. I think some of the best companies that do those types of things. They'll have videos where you can go and see what it is, whether it's, I know a lot of our customers get very, very technical, love to get geeky about the products and stuff like that. So it's the how-to video, and it doesn't have to be well shot. It can be shot on an iPhone, that's the language of a millennial. They don't care that you produced it in Hollywood and the lighting looks good. Exactly. And there's a soft filter on it and stuff like that. Dude, shoot it with your iPhone. Hey, this is what you need to do, and whatever you just
stick a GoPro on your head and shoot it. It's fine. They're used to that kind of stuff.
100%.
Well, it reminds me, because it's been a running gag on our podcast here, that when we talked about doing a podcast,
right?
I think of podcasts, because I am sort of an old at this point. I'm getting up there, I think of them as an audio only format. That's always how I've listened to podcasts. Right. That's how I got started listening to podcasts on commutes, so I was used to that. But, early on, we talked about, hey, we're going to do this as videos as well. And I remember thinking, like, come on, do we really need to do that? I'm like, one, I think I sound better than I look. So I didn't necessarily want to be on video all the time. And yet, I also will willfully acknowledge we get more views of our videos than we do downloads of our audio version.
Well, and you're showing your age here a little bit in the sense that,
I know.
Do you know kids these days, you actually use YouTube to make playlists. They don't actually watch the videos. It's just the audio that they're listening to. Okay, so I think a lot of that's going on too.
Yeah,
It's not like they're candidly sitting there watching us.
Yeah, because, we're not that exciting to look at. It's just two dudes talking. There's no cool stuff bouncing around in the background. Marco has enough of a time editing these things. If we made him put all kinds of cool animations throughout, he'd probably strangle us.
I don't want to make it any easier on Marco. Not at all. Not at all.
All right. Any other trends in this article stood out to you?
Well, I don't know if this was a part of it, but in the whole buyer preference area, I did want to pull this out too, because I thought this was interesting, because everything that you just the foundation you just laid is that people are in caves. People like to be in their caves, and they want to do everything by themselves in the caves and not talk to anybody.
Right. That sounds like me to a T, and I'm not even that young anymore.
But there are times when people want to be talked to. Okay, when do B2B buyers want to speak to someone? I thought this was pretty good. 76% of the time was when completely new product or service. So if you have a completely new product or service, B2B buyers actually want to be spoken to in that scenario.
Right.
76% of the time. So keep that in mind. 52% of the time previously purchased a product or service, but with different specifications. 15% of the time they want to speak to you when it's the same product or service. So what that means is they don't want to talk to you. If it's 15% of the time and you're going to talk to them about the same product or services as before, they're not listening, dude.
Hey, that thing you buy every year on this date at this time? Can we talk about that? No, I'm going to buy that again. It's recurring revenue. Shut up.
Now, only 4% said never, ever, ever talk to me. Everything's got to be digital.
Right.
So there's some hope that we're still wanting to talk to one another, and that the phone, this antiquated mechanism here, that my kids don't use actually
on
as
the
a phone
though either. Let's be honest.
That's fair.
It could be a chat. It could be via email.
No, I don't know.
Well, maybe not.
Want to speak to somebody.
That's
so I'll
true.
go phone or
Okay.
in person. Those are the two categories I'll put there.
I'll give you that.
So if you have a new product or service, then, it's not a bad tactic to talk to people about that and employ that as a part of your tactic to get the information out. But you have to be cognizant that if you're trying to call somebody just to talk about the same old, you're probably having a negative impact on what it is. And so I don't care if you're in sales or marketing, having that knowledge, and that is, to me, that is a buying preference change. I mean, maybe people would, or maybe it's just the reality that we all lived in, but now it's been quantified in an actual survey that, because, I was a sales rep and maybe I would call on people that I didn't have a lot to talk about, but, we still needed to, I made the cold call boss.
You had to get your time in for the day. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, I need another 5 minutes of talk time today. I'll call this guy that I talk to all the time.
Yeah, and we're going to just
BS with him for a bit.
Yeah, we're going to talk. So how's that machine doing again? Yeah, no, I got nothing new. I just want to make sure that everything's good to go. So anyway, and then I'm just going to throw it out there again that B2B sales leaders deem digital channels to be more important than traditional face-to-face interactions. I don't know. I'm still getting my head around that one. I just don't know how we're going to change as a society around that. What the human interaction looks like. Is it at the end of the road that, whereas maybe 5% of people didn't prefer any kind of personal interaction, now that's going to raise to 20% or 25% or something like that. I don't know.
Well, and I'm curious, and this actually ties into my next trend that I was going to talk about, though, is does the digital channel also include things like Zoom, for instance, and digital meetings where you're still kind of face-to-face in the sense that you can talk to somebody and see them and they can see you and read each other's faces and reactions, but not necessarily you had to travel to go see them and show up in the same room with them and shake their hand, and or take them out to dinner or whatever. Because I'm curious if that's still considered as part of like a digital channel in a sense. You still get that some of what you're missing there. You still get that feeling of meeting somebody.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before. Like we've all gotten better at those kind of interactions. We went from where we would get on meetings and never turn our cameras on because we didn't want to actually do that. I'm like, come on, I don't want you to see me, I don't want you to notice when I'm multitasking or falling asleep here, to now.
Or comment on my decor that I have in my background. Yeah.
Now we're more cognizant of that. We're like, fine, I'll turn the camera on. There's plenty, anymore, there's a lot of meetings I go into and I've got my camera on and I'm the only person. There's 2 or 3 people that just show up as initials or something, on there. I'm like, you know what? I don't care. Like, it's not a big deal to me,
neither.
And I don't care also if while we're chatting and if the conversation's not directly involving me at that moment, if I'm turning my head and looking at my other screen and working on something again, I think people understand all of that now. It's taking on a different significance of what that means. And it still is, in my world, to me at least, it's a little more productive sometimes than I had to get on a plane, fly to your business, come into your office, schedule time with you, sit down for a couple hours, maybe go out for, some drinks or lunch, go and play some golf or something, go back to my hotel, get on a plane the next day, come back. All this time you've lost doing all of that other stuff just to get to that couple hours window of time of meeting with somebody. Whereas instead, you can sit at your desk, have that meeting for an hour or two online with them, and on either end of that, get a bunch of other work done in between. Yep. And I think that kind of informs us. One of those other topics, the trends that they mentioned, was the marriage of digital and remote, being, again, the idea of understanding, we've got a remote workforce now, and that means different things. And it's not a trend that's going to go away anytime soon. There's a lot of businesses that are going to embrace this now. And I think that means a lot also for a salesperson who is used to, maybe I show up at to give you an example, when I worked in publishing, I might visit a college or a university. And when I'd go there, I'd go to, the English department or the science department, whatever, go around, knock on a bunch of doors, talk to 5 or 6 people over the course of a day. Well, what happens if you do that now and only 2 of those people are actually there in the office and the rest are all working from home? So that changes the entire game of how you approach what does it mean to do your...
You still need to get in contact with them,
you do,
right?
exactly.
You still need to, yeah.
So you've got to embrace that remote aspect and understand, like, look, you're probably not in a situation, unless you know this company is making everybody go work in that office, where you're going to be able to show up at a place and meet a whole bunch of different people. So you've got to be a lot more strategic now, I think, about deciding when you actually try to do a face-to-face meeting, or what does it mean to do a face-to-face meeting? Is it just again, over a Zoom call or something.
Well,
or
maybe
or is it a very special event where you're pulling people together for a meeting?
Right. And maybe it's kind of like what we're experiencing on the B2C side, meaning there's a little bit more of a premium now being placed on, if I'm going to go out to dinner, I want that to be an experience, right? So there's a premium on that experience. Or if I'm going to go actually shop for something, I want that to be a premium type of experience, because I can get the basics through Amazon or just online ordering. But, if I'm going to go someplace and shop, maybe, there's a premium on the experience. So maybe there's going to be a premium now on the face-to-face.
I think so.
So whereas maybe you visited a customer 4 times a year, maybe that whittles down to once, and you really try to make it a little bit more impactful on that one particular visit.
Because maybe those 4 times a year, 2 of them, you just kind of were in the area doing something else. You stopped in, knocked like, hey, how's it going, man? Shook hands, chatted about what you were up to over the weekend or what's been going on in your lives. Very minor, maybe some business talk here and there wasn't really relevant. But you're right. I think now if you're asking like a person or a group of people, for instance, to get together for a meeting, that is a meeting you're going into where you are at the top of your game.
Yes.
You're walking in there ready to
You got your agenda lined up.
You got the ultimate presentation.
If people are coming in, you got all that lined up. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
you're right. Waxed. It should be a massive event at this point.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that could very much change the game for if you're in the B2B world and you're trying to make your pitch and you've got, this is my day, the only day this year I get to go and be in front of anybody from this company. We're going to make this count. This is going to be the greatest presentation they're going to see all year long. And this is going to win us some business. It's not just going and shaking hands and, giving somebody a cigar or something, and moving on. Do people still give out cigars for, but I don't know.
I'd take one. Yeah, if you had one, I'd be good with that. So let's transition a little bit. Another interesting aspect of this article was the headline was retaining human touch digitally, which I think is a nice place to insert this in the conversation because, part of what you miss in digital environments is that human touch. And so I'll read off a couple of the call outs that they had here is that buyers prefer a mix of digital and analog touch points. Thus, companies must design a hybrid experience to address these preferences. B2B buyers also think like B2C buyers. Thus, many positive customer experiences from the latter, meaning the B2C, have influenced their B2B buying behaviors. Mostly, these aspects include human touch. Expressing this digitally is a challenge. However, B2B businesses need to translate that their superb offline relationship management skills into a hybrid endeavor. So I thought about that a little bit, augmented by digital tools. And I'm like, yeah, it is such a challenge to retain that human touch, right? I mean, you can't, Zoom's great and all, but we all know that it's not the same as being face-to-face with somebody. Until we get into holograms of people, maybe, where you can see the whole, and that was on the Star Wars episode, I guess, that we did at the end of the year. It's not going to be the same. So, but when you think about it from a company standpoint, there are a couple of angles here that we've talked a lot about, but companies need to be cognizant of this B2B trend. What are digital tools that help kind of humanize some of that? Chat's one of them. If you don't have a chat feature or if you're not enabling your staff to be able to interface with people in a chat, I'm not talking AI, although yes, you can build in AI and have that, but actual chat features. And then text I thought was an interesting one. Like, make if you have a service department, give them the ability to text SMS between that, because that's how people are communicating. But if they feel like they're actually communicating with somebody, there's actual human touch, if you will, behind that. Right. So I thought that was kind of interesting because it is a challenge to have a human touch in this digital world. If people are in their caves, don't want to be bothered by anybody except for their one internet connection, I mean, how do you have that human touch experience? It's a challenge.
In the chat thing too, it's one of those things that kind of gives you a little best of both worlds because it's very easy to I'll give you our own the chat service we use, Drift, for our websites right now. Where you can go to some of our microsites on our BlueStarInc.com page, and a chatbot pops up and asks, "Hey, can I help you out with something? Is there anything I can do for you?" And they can type something in if they want, or there's a list of like preset options, very simplistic stuff like, "Hey, I need a SKU, or I'm curious about this, or I'm looking for information about this type of product or this type of technology," and it can quickly send them to a page or send them to some additional information. nothing that a person ever needs to get involved in for that. Very simplistic stuff. And we're not talking complex AI here to do that. It's a very simple, just learning tree, a branch, of questions and answers that lead to different scenarios. But then we also have that aspect of it, though, that if someone says, hey, I'd like to talk to a human, great. We've got someone who's potentially available that can hop right on to that chat with them and have a quick conversation, and maybe they don't resolve everything, but at least they're giving them a little bit of a personal connection during that time.
Or we've even developed where you can schedule an appointment with that person, right then and there. So if you need that human touch in there. So
exactly. You kind of get a little bit of both. You get that digital experience, but you also still have that human touch if it's necessary there.
Yeah.
And again, we're not talking like this is not some mind-blowing, multi-million-dollar addition to your websites to do this.
Not at all.
It's a very simplistic thing you can set up, and there's a lot of companies that do it. Again, I will recommend Drift because they've been fantastic for us to do this with so far.
And it's one of those things, I think there's a little bit of anxiety behind it because we've internalized it. We've turned it on some of our vendor microsites, and everybody's a little bit worried. They're like, what is this going to look like? And if we turn it on, is it going to open up the floodgates? And and then we do it, and they quickly realize that, they don't get hammered on their chat all the time.
You don't have to have someone just dedicated sitting there on the chat all day long.
No, because it can be on somebody's phone and somebody has a question real quick. But the quality, the dramatic impact it can have from a user experience is phenomenal. I mean, just think about it. If you're in your day-to-day world and you start chatting up with something and it immediately starts interfacing with you and it's a human, I mean, that's a good user experience. So don't fear the chat. It gives you that digital touch. Or that human touch, I'm sorry. Yeah.
The last bullet point from this particular article I'll throw out here was 30% of industrial tech buyers prefer distributors to manufacturers.
Well, okay, so let's unpack that. So, what are you reading into that?
Well, I look at that and I'm like, because
what was the category that was under?
I don't. It was
sorry, because I did not come across that one. But
this was somewhere shortly after the digital remote thing.
Okay, because to your point, this article really does a great job of diving
really
into some
does.
stuff.
Oh, where was that? What was the percentage I said there?
30%.
30%.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can search on.
Well,
that,
and it just made me think of because obviously in our world we think of ourselves as a distributor, but I'm curious what that actually might mean, because maybe someone thinks of a VAR as technically as a distributor in some way, even though we wouldn't necessarily from what we think about. But it also occurs to me to understand that, hey, most people don't typically buy straight from manufacturers anymore,
right?
And channels like ours exist because manufacturers want to be able to do what they're good at, but then also be able to outsource the distribution side of things elsewhere. And I guess to the point of what they're saying here is that a lot of B2B customers find that useful and realize like, hey, we prefer to work with a distributor instead of actually going out to directly to a manufacturer who may not be as engaged with how to deliver solutions and how to deliver products
now you're hitting
to
on
us,
it. Yeah.
In the same way that a distributor who gets our world and gets, how we need to get certain things packaged certain ways and in certain places at certain times. So
this is good news for a distributor.
It is. It very much is. Yeah.
So I'll read a little bit more context. I guess they prefaced that 30% industrial tech buyers prefer to buy from a distributor rather than the manufacturer by saying 46% of survey respondents in a B2B poll that they did here online find it they're very dissatisfied when they cannot complete repeat orders or they can't compare products.
Yeah.
So, those are a couple of aspects that a distributor really does bring to the table, the ability to compare. How does this compare? I know our sales team does that all the time. They answer questions relative to the product and how does it compare to other ones. And that type of information we see as being a key value add that we bring to the marketplace. I mean, we're very overt about that. We understand that part of the service and support that we provide is of value, and I think that's being recognized here in this. In this
well, and I think too, where it also steps in is this idea, that, hey, you go to a manufacturer, they want to sell you their products. Obviously, they're not just selling you someone else's.
Exactly.
Versus when you work through a distributor, they're like, hey, we've got these great relationships with these, various number of manufacturers and vendors. You want this kind of product? Well, hey, look at this company, look at this company, look at this company. We've got 5 different companies that all make this kind of product for you to look at.
Yep.
You can compare and contrast all the features. We're not, we'll be happy to make recommendations if you have certain needs you want or recommendations. But if you're just looking for a simple comparison, it's very easy to look across the spectrum there versus, if you if you wanted to look just at the manufacturer level, you're like, okay, I got to look at this manufacturer's, and I got to look at this one, then I got to look at this one, then I got to look at this one. Comparing, 4 different websites, 4 different things, or having 4 different conversations to figure out what's right for you. Why not go to one place instead where you can do that? And again, I think that's a role that our VARs can play as well.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
to their end users, to their customers.
Exactly.
100%.
I mean, I know, sometimes, we talk about, hey, it never hurts to link yourself to a specific manufacturer sometimes and be very involved with their products. But it's also okay if someone's coming to you and just says, hey, I need a barcode scanner. I'm not concerned about who it's from. I just need X, Y, and Z for it. And they can offer you up, hey, here are 3 options that offer exactly what you need. Here's the other things each of them offer that you might be interested in, and you can choose from those instead. And that's choice can be very valuable to some customers, and it can also be very beneficial if you can be the person that can make a recommendation on those choices.
100%. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
and I like where you're going with the solution, right? Because a lot of resellers are looking for, obviously they need solutions. And so how do products interact with other products, and what does the total solution look like?
Right.
Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah, you don't want to be like, no slight on manufacturers, because a lot of manufacturers that we work with have very strong connections in like the software community or with other services that could be offered, but it's probably not necessarily their wheelhouse. And even outside of this industry, there's a lot of situations where you might go to a manufacturer and say, oh man, I want this, but by the way, I also need some software to put on. And they go, well, we don't do the software part of it. You have to go elsewhere for that. And that's a turnoff.
Yeah.
Why would you do that if you can go to this other guy who says, well, I can sell you what that manufacturer's got, and I can sell you the software also, and I've got all this other stuff that I can sell you, and the services that I can wrap it up in. You're right. I can deliver a complete solution instead of you shopping around 5 places for everything and putting it together and hoping that you understand how to put it all together. I do. I'll put it together for you and deliver ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So, before we leave this article, the other thing that they called out that I want to call out as well is just analytics. What is a B2B trend, and it's the use of analytics in your everyday life. And it's, if you're not using analytical tools to some degree at this point in time, you should start looking at it. I mean, you and I are always amazed when we have people come on this program and they talk about the fact that, so many customers are still just in Excel.
Right.
They use Excel. Yeah. They're using Excel to track their assets. They're using Excel to do their workflow. And you and I sitting there looking at each other like, what?
Why?
Not just a few
people. If there's
people,
a better way,
it's like
why?
60% of our customers, are using Excel. So, so those folks might not be, now obviously we're talking about end users. They're not necessarily into the whole analytics. I mean, yes, you can do analytics, I guess, from Excel and stuff like that, pull reports and macros and blah blah blah.
Right.
But if you're not starting to tap into the analytics and what analytics can provide and business data and utilizing that in your day-to-day business, it's probably something that you should start integrating into your workflow, because it's not going away.
Nope.
There are tools out there like Power BI with just a little bit of knowledge. You can take those old Excel sheets, even if you're using them today, reseller or whatever, systems integrator. Power BI is a great tool where you can wrap up those data points and still pull out of it some business intelligence that is really important. So with some of the statistics indicated that benefits that companies are getting from using analytics: improved efficiency and productivity, 64%. That's why 64% of businesses are using it. They're trying to improve their efficiency and their productivity. Yeah, duh. Making faster, more effective business decisions. I think this one's key. It's 56% of the respondents say they're using analytics for that. I think that number is going to grow exponentially.
Yep.
I mean,
and they mentioned that in the article too. Like, this is something that's going to grow as the years go by. There's no reason for data analytics to go backwards. It's only forwards at this point.
Absolutely. And smart people, I think, use it as a data point. It's not the only thing. Data is not the only thing that you should be relying on for your decision making, but it can be a powerful tool to help you guide what it is that you're trying to do. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Of course, just to rattle off a couple of other ones here, 51% using analytics for better financial performance, of course. And then way down at the bottom, though, and I think this number is going to maybe grow a little bit, was competitive advantage. 43% of people are using analytics as a competitive advantage. And I think those are actually the smart people, because if you know how to use analytics and you're using it correctly, you can make it a differentiator.
Yep.
You know, you see the trends, you know the data points, you can talk more intellectually about what is going on or why the solution's better or whatever, and relating it to other people in your ecosystem. It's powerful, powerful stuff. And I don't see that going away anytime soon.
I do not either.
So you better brush up on your
You better, yes. And there are a lot of great companies out there that will help you get started. It doesn't have to be
100%.
some monolithic dump of information you got to sort through and figure out.
Yeah.
There are so many amazing companies out there who have figured out incredibly intelligent ways using like AI, machine learning to dig through those analytics and deliver information that is actionable, usable, and again, that competitive advantage for you. You know, I mean, if you're in a space where you are the one using analytics and your competition is not, I promise you, you have the leg up.
Yeah, 100%.
You are getting better insights and moving forward and doing new things and innovating in ways that your competition is not even close to yet.
Yeah. And we've talked about basic things, just little surveys that you can send to get your data points. Of course, you have all the data around your sales and stuff like that. Augment it with some surveying. Take some time to, in your whether it's your work day or work month or whatever, start integrating it into it. You have to. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Now, there was another article you sent me, which was significantly shorter, does not get quite as far in depth. It's on brightinnovation.co, and it's B2B tech trends set to soar in 2021. And there was really, some of this stuff kind of crossed over, similar to what we saw in the other article. There was one point that really stood out to me here, though, and this is big tech crackdowns, which is a trend meaning that the inevitable, and we've discussed this before too, the inevitable crackdowns that are on their way for big tech companies like your Amazons and Facebooks and Googles that are centered around ensuring customer privacy, ensuring that there is competition, that competition is not being snuffed out by these companies, ensuring that there's security, data security, security of, either companies that are working with them or of the users that are working with them. We know that there is some form of regulation that's probably going to happen in the future. And, it may mean breaking up some of these companies. It may mean opening the gates a little bit where, others can compete. We recently talked about, I think you mentioned on a What's TEConnecting with you about the battle between the makers of Fortnite, is it Epic Games, I think?
Yes. Yep.
And Apple, just over the ecosystem of the App Store, for instance.
Absolutely.
That's the kind of stuff that is probably going to change at some point in the not too distant future. I'd say within the next decade or so, you're going to see some major changes in the world of tech that change the game for everybody involved, around it. So the kind of their point was is to be prepared for this kind of stuff and understand that you may have an opportunity in the not too distant future to put your foot in the door in a place where some of the big tech companies have been shutting you out, and to keep an eye on that and keep an eye on what's happening around these stories and to be prepared for when that happens, the day that maybe you can be, like a company like Epic who, wants to be able to do what they want to do with their app and not be chained by what, Apple's App Store is letting them do. If you know that somewhere that's coming in the future, maybe you're behind the scenes preparing for that so that when that happens, you're ready to get out there and pounce on those opportunities.
And I think that's hard to navigate at this point in time because you don't know.
It takes a lot of forward thinking.
Oh, it's a ton. But if you hearken back to how things were shut down as Apple and Google and that started becoming into our everyday life, I guess. I remember the days when, when I first had my iPhone, there were more apps available. For example, you remember the flashlight apps that you used to be able to download?
That's right, yeah.
I mean, it was so ridiculous to think of that right now, but there were actually apps that you could download from the Apple Store for flashlights. Well, Apple wiped that out with one very simple button on the front UI.
Exactly.
Boom. There's no need for a flashlight app anymore.
We got you there. It's all right.
Right. But if there is a breakup like they did with the baby bells and stuff like that, there's going to be some opportunity, to your point, to reinvigorate some of that innovation. So I guess we're tying it back to what we said earlier, 43%, right? Yep. Businesses looking for innovative or will actively be seeking opportunities that are innovative. Man, that's going to be one. If this starts going down, it's going to be huge. They also cite, cyber attack increases as being one of those things that, I guess what a lot of people have learned is it's become this decentralized environment, right? People are working from home and how do we react to that? There's some current there's some approaches that we'll have to take that are going to be different because of that. People working from home and just how it relates to cybersecurity and really kind of buttoning that up a little bit. Yeah, so anyway, there's a lot that's going to come down from these big tech crackdowns that they're talking about.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as I mentioned, I am definitely going to put these links in our show notes so you can check out these articles for yourself.
Yeah, lots of good stuff here.
There's a lot more depth that they dive into than we're able to get to here. But hey, if you have any particular trends that you're interested in sharing with us, let us know. We'd love to see what you think is going to happen in the world of B2B. If you've come across any cool articles like this, share them with us. You can find us on Twitter at TEConnectPod. You can also email us, TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com. All right, let's wrap up quickly with our value to the VAR section here. This whole conversation, I assume, has been valuable to VARs because you were explaining trends that they should be thinking about.
Right.
And
what's happening? What's going on? Yeah.
But are any of these trends you think that are actionable right now? Because I know we talked about a lot of kind of looking forward stuff and what's coming down the pipeline. But what do you think is actionable right now?
I'm going to go back to the whole human touch thing. I really think that people need to be cognizant of that and aware of that and have that in their mindset. We talk a lot about chats. We talked about, enabling kind of that human touch. But in a digital world, it's not going to go away. I can appreciate that, the fact, but you, as a company, you have to be cognizant of how people can, how they interact in a digital world and how you can try to bring more of a human touch to that. So that's the one to me. I mean, there's a lot, like I said, there's so much good stuff in this article to trends that you really need to be concerned about. But for me, I don't know why the human touch one's kind of getting called out.
Yeah, I like that. I agree.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing to me is this is the perfect time to audit your business.
There you go.
This is the time to think, hey, we learned a lot of stuff over the last year. A lot changed. A lot's different. There's a lot and we're not even 100% sure what the path forward is at this point. This is the perfect time to take a moment, step back, audit your business. Maybe it means putting out some surveys to customers. Maybe it means looking at internal process. Maybe it means reaching out internally to your own team and asking them like, hey, where should we be innovating? What should we be doing differently right now? Where do you hear gripes about from your customers? Asking your customers, what do you not like about working with us? What do you not like about our website or about our digital channels or whatever? Start collecting that information and start learning like where are the pain points that currently exist within your organization when it comes to maybe your digital presence, when it comes to how your business currently functions and operates. Because people are almost always, especially if you make an anonymous survey of some sort, people are always willing to give you some answers and give you some feedback. And that could easily give you some ideas about what trends you need to be thinking about and paying attention to and where you need to start making some changes right now.
Absolutely. And only call them when you have something new to talk about, right?
Yes.
Completely new product service, then it's okay to call them. Otherwise, you better use those digital channels that apparently all these sales leaders are thinking. By the way, the statistic was 66% of sales leader think digital channels will be more important than face-to-face.
That's huge.
That's pretty big. That's pretty big. Yeah.
All right, well, hey, let's wrap up as always with our favorite segment, What's Tech Connecting with You? Where we talk about whatever's cool in the world of science, tech, innovation. Dean, what's Tech Connecting with You this week?
Are you sick and tired of hacks? All these hackers, just running willy-nilly about, shutting down whole economies.
Up gasoline, messing with companies, messing with beef, wasn't that the way?
Yeah. You're getting sick and tired of that? Well, there's hope on the horizon, and this is serious. Morphing computer hardware confounds hackers. So what is the answer to software hacks? It might just be hardware. So DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, everybody loves DARPA. This is, I don't know. I want to go to DARPA someday because I just imagine it's just a bunch of, whatever. Just geeky people getting really geeky about lots of things and stuff like that. But they had a project that actually I'll just read from here. That agency teamed up with the University of Michigan to help develop a computer processor designed to change its microarchitecture at random every few seconds.
Oh, wow.
So it's dubbed Morpheus, and this hardware layer was created in order to stay a step ahead of hackers trying to exploit bugs in vulnerable software. So what did they do? They put out a challenge, and I love these kinds of challenges. They did a month-long test where they took Morpheus. Again, so this is hardware. This is the computer processor that's changing its architecture every few seconds. They challenged 500 professional hackers to participate in a bug bounty program, right? One of these, if you can crack it, you get $1 million or whatever. Enough that you can just go buy an island near Fiji or whatever.
Which is what all hackers strive for.
Exactly. And they were unable to do it, right? So unable to break it. So there's some hope out there. It says the Morpheus lead researcher, imagine trying to solve a Rubik's Cube that rearranges itself every time you blink. That's what these software hackers are experiencing or confronting when they go up against this microprocessor that's changing its architecture every few seconds.
I like that practical
So
example.
there you go. Maybe, I don't know why I hadn't heard about this, but we use hardware. It's changing its form factor or whatever. I'm still trying to get my head around that because I don't understand, the actual architecture of a chipset. But
it's like an actual transformer.
But I get it.
Optimus Prime in your computer.
So if you're a hacker and you figure out one tunnel, to get and now perform your hack, a few seconds later, that's no longer valid because that path doesn't exist anymore. That's kind of cool. I like it.
Yeah.
So maybe hackers are a thing of the past. I would love it if we could say that.
Let's be honest. They're going to figure out a way through that too.
I don't know.
They're going to figure out how to do a nanosecond hack or something,
Maybe. Let me have a little bit of hope here. Just give me a couple seconds of hope here that this Morpheus is going to be the bomb.
It always amuses me that hackers are the kind of people that, you look at them and you go, man, if you actually applied yourself to something useful,
worthy?
You could change the world.
We could have conquered cancer by now.
And I guess in a way they are
that.
changing the world because sometimes they are, improving processes. But exactly.
Right.
Apply that amazing brain of yours that manages to do this to something maybe a little more productive and useful. But
there you go. All right, what's TEConnecting with you?
Here's a great headline for you. 800 were arrested in a global sting operation. They were using an FBI-built app.
Wait, what?
So the FBI and Australian officials developed an encrypted device company, which eventually gave them access to hundreds of criminal networks. So basically, what they did is they created an app called Anom, A-N-O-M. That was kind of like a messaging app, like an encrypted messaging app, like WhatsApp, basically.
So this is what criminals would use.
So it's
in the dark web.
They had planted people working inside of criminal networks.
Got it.
Distributing phones.
Got it.
With this app on it, and said, "Hey, this is a great app. This app has been created so we can send private messages around. No one can access this stuff. It's all encrypted. It's impossible to break into." But the FBI themselves had created that app and had access to everything being done at it. So they've been working on this for some time. It was years long. They infiltrated a bunch of criminal networks. It was something like 16 different countries. Seizure of 8 tons of cocaine and more than $48 million.
Holy moly!
And my favorite part, though, is they called the project Operation Trojan Shield, which just sounds like some kind of new condom, frankly. But it's not the greatest name for it. But man, wait a minute.
I hope that's not the name of the actual.
No.
Okay,
the app is called Anom, like anonymous. I guess maybe anonymous, maybe or something. I don't know. A-N-O-M.
Got it.
But yeah, so apparently, I literally was hearing about this story. I kind of saw it briefly, but I heard about it on the What a Day daily news podcast I listened to as I was on my way to the studio today, and they had a quick interview with one of the officials who said, "Yeah, we were able to literally see them sending photos to each other of how they were hiding millions of dollars of cocaine in fruit shipments and in canned shipments or whatever. They were just
love it.
They all got comfortable with this, and some of the big wigs of these organizations were just sending out death threats about stuff or talking about how they were going to try to murder somebody or talking about what they were going to move around.
Holy moly!
And the question came up on the podcast. Also, they were asking why do they announce that they've done this? Put it out there, so now they can't really use it anymore.
Yeah. Cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, apparently they were reaching the end of their authorization for this particular project and this particular.
Oh no! Seriously, there's some bureaucratic red tape,
right? And they kind of said we kind of felt like we'd already done as much as we possibly could with this, and the word might have been starting to get out anyway that this was not really a legit app of sorts. So they figured they'd go ahead and put the word out there, and they clearly were quite successful with it. They got a lot accomplished obviously out of it, but just goes to show you, if you're a criminal, don't trust some rando who gives you a phone and says, "Hey man, it's the hot new app to use." No, there's nobody at the FBI is looking at that. He says into the phone.
I don't have any experience in that, but yes, I would. I would say I do love stories like that. See, that's using your creative mind effectively.
Outsmarting the criminals,
for being a good citizen, outsmarting the criminals. Yeah, I'm all in favor of that. I love when stories like that come out. But maybe that just makes the underground go even deeper underground. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, true. There'll be a whole network of hackers designing new apps for them to use. So
there you go. Yeah. Good stuff.
Exactly. Well, that does it for us today. Be careful of what apps you're using to send around your criminal information. It is time for us to unplug. That way we get off the network and can't be tracked. Until next time, folks, though, please stay connected. By now, you probably know that adding touchscreens at check-in and throughout the care journey has a big impact on patient experience in healthcare. But what about the providers themselves? Give them the technology they need with ELO O3 Series medical-grade touchscreen monitors. Merging ELO's best-in-class touch technology with DICOM 14 functionality enhances clinical review, improves workflows, and eliminates common keyboarding and point-click errors. Compact, clean designs make these monitors perfect for EMR documentation, image viewing, clinical collaboration, lab and pharmacy work, and much more. To learn more about these built-to-last monitors, check out the link in the show notes or contact the BlueStar ELO team. Across industries, Zebra scanners see more, powering businesses to see more as well. Easy-to-read barcodes are, in reality, a rarity. From warehouses to stores and in hospitals, Zebra scanners can read challenging barcodes, ensuring productivity, efficiency, customer satisfaction, and patient safety. The What Can You See campaign includes marketing and sales enablement like a scanner selector tool and flyers that will help you and your customers see Zebra barcode scanners in a whole new light. To learn more, check out the link in the show notes or visit Zebra's microsite on BlueStarInc.com.